Bonjour.
Bonjour. Warm welcome to So French, le podcast from Paris. It's crazy politics and life à la française.
My name is Stefan de Vries.
And my name is Sara Bertilsson.
And this week we take a deep dive into the French psyche and try to figure out just why French politicians can't compromise.
And as Nicolas Sarkozy is released from jail, one of his former ministers and protégé is finding herself in new hot waters with the law.
And also massive disappointment this week for potential buyers of what has been dubbed the most important scientific instrument ever offered at an auction. Find out what it is and why it never went under the hammer later in this show.
But first, let's start with something very different and actually a French story, but from abroad, to Amsterdam, where the city has decided that it has had quite enough of one very French habit. And it's not wine drinking, it's not queue hopping. Stefan, tell us, you are actually in the Dutch capital now.
Yes,
what is this all about?
Yes, the city of Amsterdam is going to take up the arms against the French visitors who come by car. Every year, hundreds of thousands of French people come to Amsterdam, of course, because of the nice museums, the canals, and, some stuff you can smoke in the streets legally. But many of the French who come by car actually park and they don't pay. They don't pay, and it's about thousands of people every year that don't pay because they know that the fine will never be sent to France. So this now the city has had enough of them. The French are actually the worst when it comes to paying their parking fines, and the city has come up with a new weapon. From next summer, every car from a country without a data sharing agreement, and France is part of that, will get an instant wheel clamp if no parking fee has been paid. And the only way to get the car back is to settle everything immediately. And that bill is around 250 euros. And that's not the parking fee. It comes on top of the parking fee. But for instance, a weekend in the city center, if you want to park in the streets, that could easily cost you around 500 euros. So plus another 250 euros, that's a very expensive weekend. Parking in Amsterdam, especially in the city center, has to be paid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at €7.76 an hour. That means if you leave it on the streets for a month, you have to pay 5,600 euros, a huge amount.
Is this the reason why the French are not paying, or do we know why there are so many?
Well, according to the city, the French know that there's no agreement between the Netherlands and France when it comes to these parking fines, because actually, technically, all fines in Europe, all traffic fines in Europe, there's a system that if you drive too fast in, let's say, Greece and you live in Belgium, you will get the fine. But not for parking fees, because that's technically a tax. So that's not a fine. So the French know that they can escape this fine, and Amsterdam has had enough with the French. So now, even if you're only 1 minute too late, you will be clamped and you will have to pay 250 euros to be liberated. The deputy mayor for mobility in Amsterdam, she said that we can't allow some visitors to just drive off without paying, while Dutch drivers and other Europeans have to. With the clamp, everyone pays, it's only fair. So
can we say that the French are making everyone in Europe then having to pay immediately? Is it really the French who were at the origin?
Yeah, the French are the worst. Also Hungarians tend to pay not to pay when they park in the streets, but there are not many Hungarians in Amsterdam. But the people from France are really almost 1 million, I think, last year visited Amsterdam. So if you walk around the city, you hear a lot of French. Many people come to Amsterdam, of course, by train, but it's not very far. So many people also come by car. And I think a lot of tourists don't even know that they have to pay 24 hours a day. So this could be a very unpleasant surprise. And it makes your weekend, of course, very expensive if your car gets clamped.
Well, unpleasant surprise for the French, but maybe a pleasant surplus in the Dutch treasury, right?
Well, Amsterdam now says it costs about 40 million euros every year. So that's money that's lost because people don't pay their fines. So maybe they will get a little bit of this money back now, but at least it's a warning for all the French listeners of this podcast. If you go to Amsterdam, you will have to pay the parking fee. Otherwise, you will find your car immobilized. So it's liberté, égalité, immobilité. And that's, of course, a very unpleasant surprise if you go weekend to Amsterdam.
All right, Stefan, we're moving back to France and something, a topic that we did touch upon in our last episode, and I think that we're likely to continue talking about in our next episode. This is, of course, the French state budget. Remember this protein project by some likened to a Frankenstein monster. Since our
or the
last...
monster of Loch Ness. People talk a lot about it, but it's never, ever, anyone sees it ever.
Exactly.
But maybe it exists. Yeah.
Well, who knows? At the moment, these debates have restarted again in the French National Assembly. They're supposed to, according to schedule, they're actually supposed to end by this weekend with a vote, but there are still more than 1,000 amendments to go through, so very few believe that this is going to happen. But we're not going to dig in too much in the details of this of the budget today. What I wanted to talk a little bit more about is actually what we've been seeing lately, and what's been a topic also quite a lot here in France, is the French the French is not wanting to compromise, the problem and the non-tradition of finding common solutions that we have here in France.
Yeah, it's weird. I think compromis is a very French word, but it's probably never used in reality. It's also some kind of monster of Loch Ness. In theory, it exists, but yeah.
I found it was interesting because if you remember when Sébastien Lecornu, who is now the prime minister, but he actually threw in the towel a first time a month and a half ago, after hours after having announced his first government, and he threw in the towel saying that he couldn't be the prime minister because everyone was acting as if they all had an absolute majority. And he said that this is no way a sustainable working condition for a prime minister. Well, he later took up the job again, set up a new government, and we'll see how long this one will last. But it says quite a lot about the working conditions and the ambience at the moment in French politics. I don't know. What do you see? I mean, you're Dutch. You have come from a country with a strong tradition of a compromise and cooperation, right?
Yes, indeed. I think the fact that France is such an authoritarian society makes compromising very difficult. You have either winners or losers, and when you get together and then decide that there will be a compromise, then there's no winner. And there are only losers. That's the whole thing of a compromise, because nobody gets exactly what he wants, but at least there's a solution. When you have an authoritarian society, one person is the boss. So he says, this is going to happen. If you like it or not, you take it or leave it. Whereas in a more egalitarian society, as in Scandinavia or Germany or the Netherlands, people are more focused on a solution, and you all grow up with the idea that you will never get exactly what you want because you have to get along with the other partner. And I think that's something you don't really learn in France. Everything is a fight. There's just a winner or a loser, and if you tend to compromise a little bit, then you're not strong enough. I think that's I think it's also a sign of weakness, actually, if you are ready to compromise. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, here it's considered a weakness if you compromise and that you have
Yeah.
been losing it, just as you say. Well, many are actually saying that this lack of compromise culture, it can be blamed on the actual structure of French politics, the Fifth Republic, the constitution that now rules how public life here function. This constitution is there since 1958, and it came into place because in the Third and the Fourth Republic there was many political parties. There were shifting constellations, and the General de Gaulle, who was the French president, he wanted to get rid of these constantly shifting governments. There were governments every 6 months, something like as we are seeing at the moment, actually. But he wanted to get rid of that, and he created a new constitution which gave the president a lot of power over the parliament. And many are saying that this constitution, it doesn't actually fit the political reality as we see it today, and that it should be changed.
Yeah, well, I think that the current constitution is more a reflection of who the French are, because it's also in the workspace, at school, you even in the street or at the boulangerie. That's, I always say mockingly, that when you go into a boulangerie, there's always the discussion about pas trop cuit, bien cuit. These old ladies who don't want their baguette to be too dark, or actually they want it very dark, and it's always a fight. And that's why
you consider that being a fight. Isn't that just being like how being service minded, when you say
no, it's always, yeah, but it's a confrontation, and that's one of the reasons I always say why the French call their bread pain. Because it is a conflict. A debate or a conversation in France is very often a conflict. One is right and one is wrong. I'm always surprised by the immense talent the French have to invent a problem with every solution, and I think that I don't know where it comes from, but I think it really has to do with the fact that first there was God. God was replaced by the king, and then the king was replaced by the president. It's always top down. It's very hardly a collaboration of people who want to achieve something together for the greater good, and that they're ready to give in on their own principles. But I think it comes from this very patriarchal way of upbringing. It's probably very Catholic as well. But I am not a psychologist.
No, but some are saying, I mean, that, French society has been built in many times in as you say, in conflict. But the French Revolution, which is probably the most important event that has shaped French society as we see it today, it was a very liberal movement, actually. But what it did also that we don't talk much about is that it actually banned all forms of budding unionism and any contractual negotiation. And these bans and these laws they stayed in France longer than in many other European countries, actually, where then the union started to grow and have more and more power. You started having these negotiations between the different factions in society, etc. While in France, it actually the unions were very weak for a very, very long time. And everything and every change that was made actually passed through protests, barricades, and then by a law. And this idea of having contracts between employers and workers, for example, was something seen as very unusual in French society. And maybe someone would say, maybe, you could think that what we're seeing today with, strikes, conflicts, and polarization is maybe goes back even to the French Revolution. There is no sense of compromise in even at situations like this, the one we're seeing now with the budget and the country being in a deep crisis, that politicians are really, they're not interested in finding common solutions. It's really much more about it's all or nothing. And
exactly. And it's of course sad, because from the point of view of economic and social progress and efficiency, there's little doubt that the Nordic and the Benelux and the Germanic neighbors, they really benefit from the ability to reach social compromises. Actually, you see all the countries in Europe where there's some kind of coalition tradition, they fare much better than France. So it's also sad that the French and the French MPs are not able to get over their own egos and to sit around the table and say, well, we have a huge problem, let's find a solution together. And not only the MPs, of course, but also the unions and all the other NGOs, they should just get around the table and talk. And then the door should stay closed, locked, until they come out with a solution, a compromise. But I'm afraid that's not really in French DNA.
Well, I'm not sure it's a question of French DNA. I think it's maybe of the power, the DNA of those with power. Because if you listen to French people, I mean, the public is very tired of the situation as it is, of the fact that nothing is moving forward, that politicians can't seem to get to agree on anything. So I'm not sure it's the DNA of the French. I think it's the DNA of the French political power, maybe. But I do think that there is a true wish with the population that these things should change. And I mean, when you talk to people here, that's what everyone says. Like we can't.
Yeah, the wish is there, but they don't realize that they have to do something themselves as well. I mean, most French agree that the country needs reforms, but then if you say, okay, well, reform, let's start with you, and then he or she will say, no, not me, first the neighbor, and then I will follow. That's the whole problem, I think. So
I don't think that French are any different than other Europeans and other human beings when it comes to those questions. But it would be interesting to see if there's a. I mean, I don't have a. It would be interesting to see if there's, for example, opinion polls about these things. But I do have a real feeling that the French are getting pretty tired of the system as it is, and the fact that it creates more tensions than solutions at the moment.
Yeah, but if they're so tired of the system, then they should change it, and they don't do that, And then they say, "Ouais, mais en fait c'est comme ça." It's like this. It's always has been, and I'm nothing. I'm just. You cannot change the system by an individual, so they do nothing. I'm pretty pessimistic about the attitudes.
I know you are.
Pretty French, actually.
Well, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see if there is a change in the politicians' actions when it comes to the budget negotiations.
Yeah.
If there will be some kind of compromise, that at the moment we're not sure where this is actually going to end. Will France have a budget for next year or not, and what kind of budget will it be? The question about French psyche and the will for compromise or not is possibly something that we can continue talking about for a long time, and maybe in future episodes as well. And have a look at really, is there a will in French society for more compromise and less winners or losers ideals?
Yeah. Well, the French society looks like it's locked down. One person has not been locked down. For him, it has been Liberation Day. And we're not talking about the Trump trade tariffs, but a real Liberation Day for one person. We already talked about him last episode. It is France's most famous or infamous inmate. Nicolas Sarkozy is free. What happened? I thought he had to stay 4 or 5 years there.
Yeah, you remember? Yes, he was
Yeah.
actually convicted in September to a prison sentence of 5 years for criminal conspiracy. He went into prison in in October. But then now, since Nicolas Sarkozy has appealed this conviction, a court here in Paris decided that he should be released while waiting for this appeal to go through to be judged. So he is out again, and of course a very happy man, we can assure. And but we learned some things about his time in prison. We did know that he had actually 2 police officers who were with him the whole time. There was a lot of worries about his security in prison. This is why he was put in solitary confinement, actually, because not because he was considered a danger to others, but more that others could actually be a danger to him. And it's not every day that you have a former president, of course, in a prison cell. But I remember we were bombarded before Nicolas Sarkozy went into prison about what he was going to do, what he was going to read, the books he was bringing with him. Remember the books he brought with him, Stefan?
Yeah, the Count of Monte Cristo, I think, and the Bible, or not?
Not the Bible. It's a biography about Jesus. Of
Okay.
course, very symbolic books that was more part of a communication strategy from the Nicolas Sarkozy team to show what kind of man they consider that he should be portrayed as. But now we also, according to French media, has found out a little bit more about what he was doing when he was actually in prison. Turns out, this is according to Le Point, a French newspaper. They say that Nicolas Sarkozy, during his 20 days at the La Santé prison, only ate yogurt. That's
Why?
not very gastronomical.
No, it's not very healthy.
It's not very presidential, I would say. Well, apparently...
No, isn't Le Président is a brand of butter? It's not yogurt in France, right? Le Président? Or is it cheese?
No, it's not yogurt. It's butter and cream.
Oh yeah, butter and cream. Wow.
No, apparently he was worried that other inmates would spit in his food.
And not in the yogurt.
I don't know. No, maybe this was sealed in some ways.
Yeah.
Or maybe
so he's a free man now.
No, actually, he has been, of course, he's not allowed to leave the country, and he's not even allowed to get in contact with certain people. For example, he cannot get in contact with those other people who are implicated in his case.
Yeah.
And he's not allowed to get in contact with the country's justice minister either.
Yeah, because the justice minister was... Yeah, he visited him in prison.
But that was apparently then their last meeting in person, because according to the judge now, they are not allowed to see each other anymore.
And there are elections coming up, municipal elections in March next year, and it's about 5-6 months. Do you think there's still a place for Sarkozy in French politics?
I think that Nicolas Sarkozy is still... I mean, there's this debate, what kind of influence he has, and what kind... I mean, he has been a very, very important figure in French, especially on the right side, right sphere of politics, of course. And he has kept I mean, he's kept a lot of cards when it comes to who gets to have a political career in the Les Républicains party, etc. And he kept good contacts with Emmanuel Macron, to say the least. But of course, with other with ministers, politicians on both regional and national level. Some were saying that over these past years he's lost a bit of his power, or quite a lot of it, and that he's more seen like a tonton, the uncle that you go see, but who doesn't really have as much influence as before. I still think that he has a say over what happens in French politics.
Yeah.
And only if you see who has visited him over these past years. I mean, you don't go see someone, politicians at this level, they don't just hang out with whomever because, they want to have a cup of coffee they go see these former politicians because they have something to offer or to talk to them about. It's I do think he still has an influence, and will this continue now when he has been actually has spent some time in prison and he has these convictions behind him? I don't know.
Me neither. And it's also very likely that he will have to return to prison, that this is just a short intermezzo. And if he returns, he may well find his former protege and current Minister of Culture, Rachida Dati.
That might be actually going a little bit ahead of events, but sure, potentially, yes.
Yeah, but she's in trouble as well, right? Rachida Dati. For many, a couple of cases, but one of them is the fact that she worked as a lawyer while she also was a member of the European Parliament.
Just to roll back the tape a little bit here, the Rachida Dati, so the former justice minister in France under Nicolas Sarkozy, and the current culture minister in France under Emmanuel Macron. She's actually already ordered to stand trial in September next year on charges of corruption and influence peddling. She's accused of having accepted 900,000 euros in legal fees from Renault Nissan, not for any work as she did. She's a lawyer, but not for any work as she did as a lawyer, but as a lobbyist. And this kind of activity is, of course, forbidden in Brussels. But there is now a new Dati case that is brewing, and it came with some new revelations this week in French media. So the whole thing started actually a couple of months ago when a French investigative magazine called Complément d'Enquête and a magazine called Nouvel Obs, well, they had discovered that a Paris law firm in 2010, just after Rachida Dati became a member of the European Parliament, well, they had received two checks of 150,000 euros each from the French gas company GDF.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And this money was then transferred to Rachida Dati, according to these investigative journalists. At the time, Rachida Dati, then as a member of the European Parliament, she, of course, had to fill in these declarations of her incomes, her other activities, whether she had any connections that could influence her judgment in sensitive political areas. And she, of course, she said she had none of these. But during her time in Brussels, Rachida Dati took a very big interest in the energy sector, and she pushed for a lot of different gas projects.
What a coincidence!
Well, it could be a coincidence. We have nothing is proven in a court yet, but she took big interest in these gas projects to the extent that actually some other politicians started to finding it a bit strange. And for someone who hasn't been that involved in these kind of questions before. Rachida Dati she always denied that she had worked in any way for GDF. She has given no explanations to these checks. And the case has not yet been, and there's not yet any official case with the French authorities in this. But what happened after these revelations was that GDF, which now has changed name and it's called NG, well, they started their own investigation into these revelations. And this week, the French media announced that this own investigation has now presented its results, and they confirm that money was paid from GDF, now NG, to this law firm where then Rachida Dati had an address. But we don't know, but still no contracts, no details about what this money was actually for, and what kind of exchange there was from the side of Rachida Dati. But to say that Rachida Dati is a very controversial
naughty girl.
Well, we don't know yet, but I mean, there's a lot. She's a controversial politician,
Yes.
not only because of this, of course. I mean, she's already then, as I said, will be in court next year. She's also controversial because of her methods. She's known to be a ruthless politician, a very fun person to interview for media as well, because she's someone who's always bringing on a show, and very, well, both appreciated and feared, I would say, by French journalists, because you never really know what to expect when you have Rachida Dati on set or in an interview. But she's clearly a character, and a character who many believe will be the next mayor of Paris.
Yeah, indeed, because there are elections in March. Is there a possibility that maybe her political opponents have staged this new twist or this new scandal in order to harm her, because she denies everything? Is that also an option that could be considered?
I think there is no, I mean, of course, you can't rule that out. I mean, politics is, I mean, yeah, it's ruthless, and it's the City Hall of Paris is the top prize for many French politicians, and of course it's very important for the parties to have the power of the French capital. It's not, I mean, it can't be ruled out, of course, but there are very serious journalists who are behind these revelations. I would not believe that they have any reason to not tell the truth or what they believe is the truth. If someone has leaked information to them, possibly, that we don't have information about. But it's true. One thing is for sure, it's a very, very it's a tight race in Paris, and it's a very important race for many. So of course there is an interest to both for Rachida Dati to get that, top prize, and for others to make sure that she doesn't get there.
Yeah, and all this money she allegedly got for her work as a lobbyist or as a lawyer, the amounts of it could be calculated on a very old machine that is also in the news this week in France, isn't it?
This is like only one of a handful of these machines. This was developed by the French mathematician Blaise Pascal in 1642, so a real rarity. And I don't know if you were lining up for the sale, Stefan, but I'm sure there were many people interested in this little gem.
Well, it sounds like a very fascinating machine. What should I pay for it if I was about to bid this week at the auction?
Well, they were saying they were expecting between 2 and 3 millions for this machine. But now they've decided at the last minute, just just hours actually before it was supposed to go under auction, under the hammer, it was withdrawn. And this because the French authorities had decided that this machine is not allowed to leave the country. And I'm assuming then that the Christie's considered that there were a big chance that there would be an international bidder for this machine. So no, for the moment they pulled it. It's going to stay where it is. We'll see what's going to happen next. Calculating won't be, well, at least won't be for you then, Stefan, because you can't bring it to, not on this machine at least.
I'll use my head to make very complex calculations.
I'm sure that you're very good at that as well.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up this edition of French News and Politics and Scandals and complicated calculating machines. You can find all our episodes where you usually get your podcasts, so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows, make sure to follow us. You can also find us on Instagram, just search for So French Show.
And please share this episode with your friends and family. And do send us an email. Our address is bonjour, like hello in French, bonjour @sofrench.show.
And this So French podcast is produced and presented by me, Stefan de Vries, and
by me, Sara Bertilsson. This podcast's original music is made by Laurent Blot. And we're back in 2 weeks with a new episode. Until then, take care.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.